Okay, so we're back in the studio again today. Again, please excuse the outdoor noise, it's just too hot in here this summer. We're now a couple of weeks down the line and I've done some modification to this guitar and got it pretty much where I want it. Now this was not an easy job and I've had some horrendous luck with this guitar, but right now it's playing pretty well, so I'm really pleased with it. But you know, I've said some bad words about it in the last few weeks or so. As you can see, it's still stunningly gorgeous and it's now playing really well and making some great sounds. So the first issue I had with it was the tremolo. Now when I first checked it out, it didn't really act how I expected it to. You know, it didn't really do the whole dive bomb thing very well, which was fine because I was going to block it anyway, so I didn't think much of it. When I came to block it, I had a tremolo and it just didn't seem to want to work. Like, I followed the installation instructions, you know, to the letter. There was still movement in the bridge and it was still almost impossible to tune it, and every time you tune one string the rest would go out, so it wasn't properly hard-tailed and I couldn't really understand why. Then I tried doing it the old-fashioned way with a piece of wood and still I had movement and I couldn't account for it until I disassembled the whole tremolo, and I found that the tremolo block had actually twisted out of shape and it had stripped its threads. The way that the bridge is connected to the block is by some very, very short screws, and it stripped those screws. So imagine even if this was blocked off, it still had play because the actual block of the tremolo would move quite significantly, which sucked because the shape of that particular block lends itself to the fit of piezos, which is the next project for this guitar. It might even be possible to do it without drilling any holes in this whatsoever. So I went online for help and most people said, you know, just buy a brass block, it'll make it sound better and it's more sturdy, which is good advice in general. However, the brass block doesn't have the little routes in it, which this one does for help with the piezo wires. And additionally, it would have been about, I think they're about $40, but then maybe another $20 to $30 shipping to the UK. There's no one really selling them over here that I could find to fit these bridges, and I just didn't want to do it. But I did find a really helpful solution on a Japanese YouTube account where someone successfully fixed the bridge by threading much longer M3 machine screws through the tremolo into the block, and I did that and now it's properly secure. It's held in by much longer screws, 15 or 16 mil I believe. So if you have an Edge Pro or a similar bridge and you've got movement in the block, don't throw it away straight away. Go and get yourself some M3 sized 15 mil machine screws that are countersunk, and they should fit right in, replace the ones in there, and will go much deeper and hold it in place. With that done, I switched the tuners out for Gotto MGT locking tuners. These are the SG381 size. They basically just slotted right in where the old ones did. I've also, you might notice, switched the buttons for these nice perloid ones which I got from All Parts, but they only sell them in sets of 6, so I need to get another one now that I know they fit. Next, I've had the guitar rewired. Now I mostly did the electronics myself, but I think I made a bit of an error with the neck pickup, so I passed it to my friend who's brilliant at electronics and he sorted it out for me. So now it has a CTS push-pull pot for a volume. The push-pull splits the coils of the humbuckers. It's also a CTS three-way Telecaster style switch, so it's much easier switching now. Some people say, well, you know, why do you go from a 5-way to a 3-way? Surely it's more versatile to have the 5 positions. Yeah, but if you don't use them, then they're just in the way. You have to be a bit more fiddly with where you put your selector. With this, I can just throw it to where it needs to be. And these are the positions that I use, generally bridge, humbucker, neck, coil or humbucker. And on this guitar I have a middle single coil which I found that I really like, so having that on its own selector is really helpful. This little switch currently doesn't do anything, but it takes up the old tone pot hole, and that is going to be for the piezo system when I install that next. The further bad luck I've had with it, I've put heavier gauge strings on. These are 11 to 64 I believe, because this is now tuned to G sharp modal, which is basically like dadgad but down to G sharp. So G sharp, D sharp, G sharp, C sharp, D sharp, G sharp, C sharp. I think I got that right. Essentially these 3 strings are the same as these 3 but an octave lower, and then you have essentially what is just drop D but down quite a few steps to G sharp. And this scale length and these tuners and the way the bridge is blocked now, they hold that tuning really well. When I came to just generally kind of clean it up and use some lemon oil on the fretboard, my lemon oil bottle just pops and covered the guitar, the nearest wall and curtain. Fortunately the guitar saved, wall and curtain not so good. Other couple of things I did were just to set the intonation for this tuning and raise the bridge height just a little bit, because there was a bit of fret buzz everywhere. That appears to be mostly cleared up without having to adjust the neck, which is a bonus because I'm terrified of it. So Ibanez RG2077xl, restored to something usable for metal. So now, having had it for a bit and modified it to my own needs, I'm really happy with my purchase, and this is a great guitar. The next thing to do will be to utilise my friend who's an electronics whiz to put the piezo's into this bridge, but for now I'm just going to enjoy how it sounds. We'll start with the bridge pickup, which is the Lundgren M7. So let's try a different kind of amp model. Let's look at generic 6160. So this is 5150 style amp, gate in the loop, a V30 cab, and just like a kind of tube screamer kind of drive in front of it to boost it. So let's try this. It's okay, not the best. Try diesel. This is already quite a dark patch, so maybe if I boost the top end even more. It's already pretty boosted. It kind of sounds to me like it's got almost a slower distortion to it, like the attack is less pronounced. So maybe that's not the amp for that pickup. But what I did notice when I was messing around is that this pickup seems to have like a bit of an affinity with dual rec patches, so let's maybe make one of those. Right in the low end. Maybe we'll cut more bass and boost a little harder. Presence and brightness. Cool. So let's go back to my rhythm patch, which I was preferring. It's a lot brighter by comparison. There's a lot going on in this patch. So now let's try the split coil, which might make this horrendously bright, but splitting this M7 gives you a ton of attack. Now let's just try the neck split, which is the other kind of rhythm position I'll sometimes do. So let's look at some cleans. So I want to start with the middle pickup, which is a single coil, because this was sounding pretty good when I was messing about. Let's go for a neck humbucking, because this, I don't use this a lot, but this sounds really good with this guitar. And the neck split, which would be my substitute for a piezo. pretty sound. Let's just quickly try this with a pitch shifter as well, because that doesn't always sound the best. Maybe it will. That's kind of taken on a different kind of effect to the Milton Cleans. That's more of a, you know, really exaggerated crystal sound.